Welcome to the Kick Sugar Coach podcast. Join me each week as I interview experts who will share the science of sugar, sugar addiction, and different approaches to recovery. We hope to empower you with the information and inspiration, insights, and strategies you need to break up with sugar and fall in love with healthy whole foods so you can prevent and reverse chronic disease, lose weight, boost your mood and energy. Feel free to go to my website for details on my coaching programs and to access free resources, kicksugarcoach.com. Welcome everybody to the Kick Sugar Summit. I have with me today Dallin Hardy, who has 2 degrees, one in biochemistry, an undergraduate degree, and he's got a master's in food science. And for the past 6 years, he has been the product development specialist at Hardy Nutritionals. In addition to product development and quality assurance, he also works with health professionals, helping them to use their product in their practices. He collaborates with independent researchers all over the world, with universities. He's very passionate about his company and what they do. And their mission is to provide the world's safest, most effective, and most well-researched nutraceuticals that are targeting mental health, brain health, psychiatric symptoms, and in the world of integrative psychiatry. So welcome, Dallin.
Thank you. Thank you for having
me. So I sort of gave a bit of a bio there. Is there anything more you want to add about yourself and your position with Hardy Nutritionals?
Well, I'm sure people would wonder. Hardy Nutritionals, my last name's Hardy. Yes, I'm the son of the founder, David Hardy. And so I kind of grew up as a kid with my dad switching from animal nutrition, where he spent much of his career, to human nutrition, bringing some of that knowledge over, and finding human nutrition was behind. Turns out you can experiment on animals easier than humans, so maybe that's why. But anyway, he brought a lot of innovation to human nutrition, and it affected our family directly. And so I thought there's nothing, after our family experiences with mental illness and watching the supplement my dad made affect, my very own siblings, really saved their sanity, saved their lives, and then it made me focus my career on that, because I thought, what else could I do that's meaningful after, now that I know that without mental health, life is meaningless, like life is terrible, meaningless. I had wanted to be an engineer and, a civil engineer, and, I like math and building things, but it just felt like it wasn't as important, because if you don't have your health, you can't enjoy a car or an airplane or a spaceship or anything else that you can build with mechanical engineering. So.
Right. So in terms of the origins of the company, so it started as a nonprofit, right? It started as 2 men who knew each other, that both had children that were struggling with mental health issues. And because of your dad's background in working with animal nutrition, he pitched the idea that, I wonder if humans would benefit from targeted micronutrient supplementation, to see if that can make them improve symptoms of mental health issues. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. He saw some corollaries in animal behavior responding to nutrition. And he saw the psychiatric diagnosis as sort of behavioral presentations in humans. Then they gave it a shot, and it worked.
Right.
So they made a business out of it. So that was through Hope Nutritional Support. And then the business, after I think it was about a little over 10 years together, my dad started Hardy Nutritionals, separated ways. He wanted to tweak the formula a little bit more, have a little bit more freedom to update the formula to his liking, and just start a company that was focused more on health professionals, and a brand that was really targeted to health professionals, helping them help their patients. Just because they ran into this barrier of people wanted a natural alternative. And at the time, integrative psychiatry wasn't as big a thing. It's growing quite a bit, but it was just viewed as snake oil. And so he wanted to really capture the attention of the health professionals, which required doing a lot of research, which he had really worked hard to get with the previous company to And so that has continued with Hardy Nutritionals. There's lots of strong studies now. And that's kind of where Hardy Nutritionals falls after the former company, which was True Hope Nutritional Support.
Right, right. So they were friends. They worked they collaborated, they created this amazing product that they just were doing for their families, right? Just, it was
Initially, yeah.
never a dream to have it be this international company, one of the most researched and validated supplements on the planet. They were just really trying to save their own children from their own psychiatric and mental health challenges. And then when they saw that it was working, it started to catch on. And Dallin, you don't know this about me, but I was friends with Autumn Stringham, and we used to chum around in Edmonton. We'd go for walks in the river valley, and she was like talking about this product that had really changed her life around because she was struggling with bipolar. It saved her life, and she was bringing me early samples of the product in little bottles. I had a little brown bottle that was unmarked. It was a glass bottle. I think it was the mineral part. Anyways,
Okay.
so I was there when it was still just these little components that you guys were pulling together. I was so exciting because I could feel in my own bones, wow, this is really something magnificent is coming together here. Anyway, so yeah, it was just these little experimentations and it worked. And you have your own, so was it more than one sibling that struggled with mental health issues?
I did have a couple. Only one was really had to be hospitalized. So yeah, I had a brother who went into the psych ward a couple of times, um, and yeah. But since since he's been taking my dad's supplement, you know, that was back in the early days, a little bit after autumn. But initially we didn't supplement preventatively. It's a paradigm that we were like most families. Like if you get sick, you go to the doctor and you get something, but you don't really pay attention to your health prophylactically or preventatively. Um, we would have thought of no reason to supplement. Although, and my dad thought afterwards, as we look back on it, essentially in animal nutrition, that was my whole career because you save a ton of money if you keep the vet away. If you get, off of a feedlot, if you can get 10,000 head of cows to market one day earlier than the next feedlot, you save like $1,000,000, right? So that it was all about preventative, but in our, just I guess didn't clue in until after we'd seen these effects, and not even then. After the supplements were created, we didn't use them widely in our family until after my brother had a psychotic break, and then we started using them for him to fix him, and then my parents suddenly got interested in all of us
Right.
taking them, just taking them as a multivitamin, maybe not at the therapeutic dose, and I still don't take it at the kind of dose that was required for him to stabilize from his hospitalized experience, but hospitalization. But I still take it at the lower doses, and these are doses that now have been researched in sort of subclinical situationally induced depression, anxiety, stress. We have research on that level of dosing now showing significant benefits at the level that I'm taking it. So it's a research dose even for a general health use.
Right. So you had a brother who was literally hospitalized because of his psychiatric issues, psychotic episode, as you called it. And that awakened your family to the fact that, okay, we need to get him extra supplemented. He needs to have more nutrition than the average person. It'll heal. The hope was it would heal the brain, and it worked. Healed the brain and healed the psychiatric issues. And then the family was cluing in going, oh, why are we not all taking this? It's just nutrition for the body and the brain. And then everybody got on it, and sort of in a prophylactic way, just sort of a preventative way. And so you've got research that shows that it can actually be helpful for psychiatric diagnoses. It can be helpful for mainstream mental health issues. And it can also be helpful for people even at low doses, just as a daily support to supplement the diet and to give us extras of the things we need to feel good every day.
Yeah, exactly. But the low dose, I feel like we're talking in terms that people would be confused if they saw our dosing recommendations. So we're talking therapeutic dosing. My brother was using the range is 12 to 15 capsules per day. In severe cases, like he had schizophrenia was his diagnosis. And for that, 18, sometimes we've had clinicians go up to 24 capsules per day or more to really get stability in the psychotic disorders. But for most of the mental illnesses, there's the bulk of the benefit can be achieved at 12 to 15 capsules per day. And your average one a day multivitamin just doesn't even, come close to that. But the general health dosing would be 4 to 8 capsules per day. That's the dosing range that I'm in currently.
Yes, yes. What have we learned, and what have you learned as a company? I mean, personally, you witnessed the transformation in your brother and your other sibling, and even the Stringham families, and now you've been on the phone for years now with people who call in to say, you've learned so much over the years, but what is it telling us? What window of insight is it giving to us about the connection between nutrition and brain health and mental health issues?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would say one thing is since the vitamins and minerals were discovered, micronutrients were discovered, they were classified as essential nutrients because it was discovered that the body couldn't make them, but the body needed them. Hence, they were essential, and you had to take them in the diet, right? And so, and they classified when they discovered them, they classified nutrient deficiency diseases. So if you get rid of vitamin C out of the diet, then you'll present with scurvy. You get onset of scurvy within just 3 months. And so on and so forth. Let's restrict this single nutrient and see what deficiency disease results. And then they figured out, there's a certain dose of intake, there's a certain amount of intake of this essential nutrient in the diet that can prevent these nutrient deficiency disorders. And that was sort of assumed to be what was needed for health. But I think what we've discovered is that there's this sort of subclinical, or at least subacute, it definitely becomes clinical over time, but there's a subacute insufficiency that builds up over time and can cause these psychiatric issues. So just having insufficiency, you might not have a classic nutrient deficiency disease like beriberi or scurvy or any of the other ones, but your brain just might not have what it takes until pretty soon. And often the onset is gradual, but one day you just wake up. And in the case of a psychotic break, it seems sudden, but it really had this years long onset from insufficient nutrition. So I think what we've discovered is that optimizing health is looks a lot different in terms of essential nutrient intake, especially the micronutrients, from preventing the overt nutrient deficiency diseases. That's one thing that we've learned. And other things it says about mental health is that maybe mental health is not so mysterious and scary. Like the holy grail of diagnostics really is to identify root cause, right? And so maybe this is pointing at that. And if you can find root cause in an illness state, then you have a lot better chance of resolving the issue, at least fundamentally, instead of just treating symptoms. And so I think it's likely hinting at that. I think that's one of the things it's showing us. And that, if that's the case, it really takes the fear out of it, because there's a lot of mystery about the mind, and that neurology and neurobiology is sort of, because you can't really cut a person open and experiment on that part of the body as much as you can other parts of the body, and at least keep the person still alive. And so there's a lot of mystery still, even among scientists, about how the brain works and stuff like that. And so it's sort of the last frontier of health. Some people say the gut microbiome and the brain are both considered, hot topics these days, and considered to be cutting edge, last frontier type knowledge that we're learning about the body there. And it's up to till now, it's been sort of mysterious. Well, what's going on with these mental illnesses? And even just a few weeks ago, a paper was published that sort of put to rest an age-old theory about, serotonin and depression, the neurotransmitter theory that they had. It just seems to not be accurate. So there's still a ton of mystery. But if this and when you can't understand something, that's when you get fear about it, right? And so this relieves if this really is pointing to root cause. Not only does it make it easier to get good results, but it also takes away the fear from it. I'm not scared of mental illness. I've lived with it. It was very, very difficult to live with, but it's preventable and it's treatable.
Right. That's so hopeful. And it's interesting because as our diets have been decreasing in the quality, right? Like we're just getting more and more junk food. There's less and less minerals in the soil. The quality of the food, even if we are eating the good stuff, just doesn't have the same amount of micronutrients that it used to have, even in the 50s and 40s and 30s.
Yeah, there are good studies on that. Yeah, it's definitely
Right?
true. And it does go back to agriculture with pretty deep, pervasive influence that's society-wide and really hard to avoid.
Yeah. So even if we are, I'm eating pretty good, you might still not be getting enough of your essential daily nutrients. So as your reserves get depleted, or as you're left short on what you need to sort of have a healthy brain, which it very much is linked to healthy moods, then slowly over time there's this degradation of wellness, mental health wellness, and it shows up as depression, anxiety, and then in extreme cases there can be almost like a snap and schizophrenia or psychotic episodes. And so what we need to do is go back. It sounds like what your research is pointing to is that we need to go back and replenish the body and the brains of these essential nutrients. Now, how did your formula figure out what to put in it and how the ratios? And I mean, I'm sure some of that's proprietary, but is there anything you could say about that?
You talked about some of the early days of the mineral portion was originally separate from the vitamin portion, and different doses of each were tried, and it actually became a theme really early on that the mineral side of things was of utmost importance, and it's interesting in a lot of ways. It's more bulky. That's the bulkier part of supplements. So in most multivitamins, if they're gonna let go of something, they're gonna let go of the minerals because they take up more space, especially the macro minerals like calcium and magnesium. But that was found to be a really important part of of the effect, and so. And my dad also brought a lot of information from animal nutrition, and one of the things they found in animals that he brought to humans is that broad, comprehensive supplementation was the best. It got the best, healthiest animals and gets the best outcomes. So one of the really unique things about the daily essential nutrient formula is just that it's comprehensive. At least the daily essential nutrient formula is. I should back up and talk about essential nutrients. So the essential nutrients are divided into two main categories: macronutrients and then micronutrients. The macros would be like water, carbohydrates, protein, and then the micronutrients, and those are all essential. They're essential nutrients. But the micronutrients are the vitamins and minerals, and then certain of the amino acids. So this is in the protein category. But among all the amino acids that make up protein, some of them your body cannot make. You have to ingest them. Those are essential protein, amino acids. And then there's a few essential fatty acids as well. So a few essential fats. But the vitamin and mineral side is what daily essential nutrient supplements. And some people actually may need a little bit of the others. But I think it's just sort of happens that where the research has been done and the societies that it's been done in, the people being taking the supplement aren't deficient in the essential amino acids or essential fats, and so that hasn't been as necessary for the treatment effect. But it's not to say that some people might not need more of those essential nutrients. But the daily essential nutrients formula is all of the essential vitamins and minerals, and so that's the comprehensiveness is one thing. Another thing that you talked about the balance between them. Some of that was experimentation at the beginning to figure it out, and some of it was research too. And unfortunately, a lot of the research is single nutrient research because that's the scientific method. Change one thing at a time, but that's not how the body works. It needs all. I have a biochemistry degree, and the biochemistry department they have these metabolic maps that just show metabolic pathways of what your body is doing, and it's like a big web of interconnected physiology, and one thing affects another, and you cannot separate them. So the research really on nutrition has been out of context, right? Out of the rest of the context. So that all the essential vitamins and minerals and the ratios between them, they do interact like different absorption. Sometimes the absorptive mechanisms overlap, and so if you supplement too much of one, you can sort of outcompete the absorption of another. So that has to be balanced. And my dad poured over the research, animal and human research. I remember stacks of studies that he'd read and highlight when I was a teenager. Now it's what I do in my job. So that was there. So the comprehensiveness and the balance, and then the form that it's in also makes a difference. So there's, especially with minerals, there's like rocks. You've seen them, big rocks, and you can take those down to smaller and smaller, and to release the actual mineral from the rock. What plants use is they use organic acid. So like the roots of it, if you've ever seen a pine tree grown on a mountainside, and it's like there's no dirt around, but it's got its roots shoved in this little crack that probably it made. You just drives the roots in there, and it releases these acids that sort of dissolve the rock, and that releases the minerals from the rock onto these carrier molecules that can bring it into the plant, and the plant needs that mineral. So the form that the nutrients is into, all of that stuff goes into making the supplement that is. And then we talked earlier about dosing. Those four things probably are what sets it apart from other supplements. I don't know if I answered exactly specifically like how all those, but it's so much. I could talk about, the zinc copper ratio and go into depth with you on that, for example. But I think I answered it maybe in a macro sense.
Yes, absolutely. So it's not as simple as your father was experimenting, he was doing the research, he was playing with ratios, you were getting feedback, you were tweaking, you were refining, and then you were discovering that it isn't just about the ratios. That's one. It's the delivery. What is the size of the particles? What are the cofactors with it? Like, how do they all play together? What is the right dosage? Right. Because a multivitamin that you might get from like the grocery store is night and day from what we're talking about here, because this is a therapeutic intervention that's designed for mental health, wellness.
Yeah, just as a formulator, it always has intrigued me. If you go to the store and you look at the percent daily value column of the supplement facts label, you'll see like even numbers, usually 100%, 100%. Now those numbers are based on, I talked earlier about recommended intakes. The recommended intakes are built on the research that has been done on preventing classic nutrient deficiency diseases. So those are those doses that they thought would be adequate because it prevents the overt deficiency diseases, but we're finding is not adequate for optimizing health. So, they have 100%, but often it's formulated to like nice, round, even numbers. You look down the label of daily nutrients, it's all over the place. The percent daily value column, it wasn't formulated to look good on the label. It was formulated for the column beside that, which is the quantity column in milligrams and micrograms. Those are what we focus on. We let the percent daily value fall where it is. And so it's not as good for marketing, but it makes a better supplement.
Got it. Right. So I could take like, let's say 100 milligrams of vitamin C and stave off scurvy, but that is by no means necessarily the amount that I need to thrive, to be really vibrantly healthy. Got it. So those numbers are going to probably be tweaked as we continue to do research in nutrition. How is it that your product has become literally the #1 most studied, pure medical journal reviewed product? How did that happen?
My dad was like a bulldog, just super persistent. And when he found this out, he knew from animal nutrition, like to get a big feedlot to adopt your feed changes and your nutrient recommendations, supplement recommendations, you had to bring them a study. So
You had to what? Sorry?
you had to bring them a study. Otherwise, they're on 10,000 head of cows or more, and it's a lot of money to try something that's not going to work. So they're only going to change their operating protocols if they're confident they're going to make more money off it. So he knew the importance of getting a study to really get the attention of the influencers, right? So when he figured this out, and they, in their families, my family and his business partner's family, and they saw a viable business in that and an opportunity to help a lot of people, was something that really there wasn't good solutions for, even in conventional treatment. There's not great long-term solutions, especially. Then he just started knocking down the doors of academic researchers. He went to all universities around. We're in Alberta, so Southern Alberta, Central Alberta, and and in the States too, just kept trying to find someone who would do some kind of trial. And he finally started at the University of Calgary, with a really brave researcher, because you could run into a lot of snake oil, right? The researcher, I'm sure you got lots of people that think their stuff is the best in the world. But my dad tried to gather, and his business partner tried to gather some good, medical notes and some data, take it and make a case for it. And once the research started, I think after that, it's really credit to the researchers who often without government grants, they get private funding and do the research just because, the research sort of becomes self propelling after a while because the results are so convincing to the researchers. And in the field of psychiatry, the daily essential nutrients formula has a pretty dramatic effect, especially for something that's integrative. The effect size is really impressive. And so it started in bipolar disorder, which was a very good responding diagnosis to daily essential nutrients, with really significant results. And then researchers live by publishing, right? They publish papers and that's how they advance their career. But you don't want to publish something that's blasé or a failed study, right? You want to be on the cutting edge of your field. You want to really advance things, and you really want to, in the case of the researchers that have picked up our products, they really want to help humanity. They want to help people with mental illness. And so that has just led them to keep researching it for more things that it's good for. And it's proven because it has such a pervasive benefit on the central nervous system. It's not really a disorder specific mechanism. It's just a physiological pervasive upregulation of function basically of the central nervous system. It has to varying degrees, varying response rates, and you need various doses, higher doses for certain disorders than others, but you can get really great responses out of pretty much any psychiatric symptom across the board, from the psychotic disorders to the mood disorders, depression, bipolar, to even some of the other things like that aren't even so focused on mood, like attention disorders, ADHD and autism, and even beyond, classical psychiatry to traumatic brain injuries, which are often result in psychiatric problems because the brain is damaged. And so they just are following where they see results and publishing papers with statistically significant results, and that's what people call you as a researcher to go to conferences to present. They don't call you to present on something obscure, or you're just nuancing some discovery that's already been sort of validated. They're really making advancements in the field, and so they're getting the appropriate attention for it, and they're loving validating that this is helping people and trying to help it get more adoption and to benefit humanity. And that, I think, that's a variety of those factors probably that are driving them. We could ask them, but we haven't had to fund the research, and we really don't even have to initiate it, drum it up, because they approach us, and then they talk to their colleagues and they present at conferences, and if the word reaches the ears of a researcher who has an interest that aligns, then they talk with us.
Right. And I remember I interviewed Dr. Bonnie Kaplan, and she was saying that there were lots of vitamin companies whose product was being, hey, would you supply some product? We'll study it. And they're like, oh, hell no. And there's your dad beating them down. Can you do some research on this for me? Can you validate what we're finding clinically, that this is transforming lives? This is really, really showing some promise here. And third party, obviously you're not paying for it. You're not looking for results. You're looking for science and research to kind of maybe even get better at what you're doing with your products. It's so amazing. And of course it's catching on. It seems to me that, one story comes to mind, and I don't know if you're the right person to ask you to share it. Do you know the story of Charles Popper very well?
I know him very well. And I've heard my dad tell how he first met him and introduced him to the products. Yeah, I could probably tell it. I talk to him frequently.
Yeah, great. Share it, because I think it's an amazing story.
Yeah, I mean, he's practicing at McLean Hospital, professor at Harvard Medical School. And McLean is Harvard's teaching hospital, so we'd have residents in there, with him. very, very good psychiatrist, very cautious and conservative, actually. And it was actually Bonnie Kaplan went to Harvard and did a presentation there, and my dad and his business partner accompanied her, and they had a few people attend, very skeptical. Charlie was one of them, and he kind of Charlie said he kind of wanted to sneak out at the end. Didn't really want to, wasn't really that interested. But my dad caught him on the way out and hoisted a bottle on him. So, Charlie was demure and he just said, "No, I'm not really that interested." And my dad just said, "You have to try this." So he gave him the bottle and he said, "Just try this on someone and see what, see it for yourself." And Charlie said he walked down the hall with it tucked under his coat. He didn't want to see any of his colleagues that uh, to see him with that kind of a treatment in his hand. So, and then he said he just set it aside in his office, hid it behind some papers and books so nobody would see it, and just sort of forgot about it until um, a patient was brought in. It was a child bipolar case, so a 5-year-old boy, I think, was the age, and the parents were just beside themselves because he was tantruming for like 4 hours a day and just really hard to handle. And the and Charlie has a rule, because psychiatric disorders fluctuate so much, that he will see a patient twice, temporarily separated. So he leaves some time between visits and he sees them at 2 different times to try and get a good picture of how they really are before he launches into treatment. But the parents were really insistent that on that first visit, we need something this time. And it was sort of against his idea of best practice psychiatry. And so he said, "Well, why don't you try this?" So he thought of this bottle and he pulled it out. It was a bottle of supplements, just vitamins and minerals, probably can't hurt. And it's not really a treatment in my eyes. So I'll give it out on the first visit. You can get this out of my office and go home. And then the next visit, which was just a week or two later, this little boy came back just perfectly calm and no tantrums at all. And the parents were just absolutely pleased. And Charlie said, "Well, great. I'm glad it helped." But he thought it was a placebo effect. He told me this. He said, we don't have any drugs that can do that in that sort of time. I thought it was placebo for sure, because placebo can do that, but it's temporary, so it won't last. And so he thought, you just go and do your thing with that supplement and see. And, when you come back to me if the problem occurs, and he thought that would happen. And it did, but only when the parents ran out of the product and didn't get the new shipment in time. And then they came back and so that on off effect. And then Charlie, he really worked hard to confirm this. So he said, "All right," they couldn't get anything right away because it took some time to ship that product there. So what he did is he went to the corner store and just took the label and bought a whole bunch of supplements. He said it took him about 24 bottles of supplements. He had his arms full and they were all falling out of his cart, or his basket. And he said he felt so self-conscious at the checkout, just buying all these, and he tried to match the doses and everything. And he said it was a 4 times as expensive, and to buy in single nutrient version, all of it's packed into the daily essential nutrients, which it would be at least. And he could only recreate the label about 67 to 70%, about 2/3 accuracy, just combining these other supplements. So the family was going on vacation, so they really couldn't get a shipment to get to them. So he said, "For a vacation, just take all this stuff and try and recreate what you're doing with this other supplement, and see how that does when you get back. You'll get to a good treatment." So that worked about as 60%. So and which is about how well Charlie could match the label, piecing it together, and that sort of on off on with a different set of nutrients or supplements providing the same nutrients, and then they ordered, and when they got home from their vacation, they started back on the original supplement that my dad had formulated and got back to the original results, and it didn't fade. It was not a placebo effect. In as much as he supplemented, the boy didn't revert, and that really caught Charlie's attention. And then he did more in his practice, and he published on it since. Just case series of cases, case after case in his practice, where just wrote it up and published them, and yeah, still recommend it to this day.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. This Harvard psychiatrist who's like, I'd rather die than be caught thinking that a bottle of micronutrients can solve our psychiatric problems. These are complex and hard, and our best pharmaceuticals can't turn things around in days, weeks. Like, come on. That's magical thinking. That's not science. And to think he did such an about face and has actually become this massive champion of getting us to understand even more and more how feeding the brain and being nourished and nurtured and supported through micronutrient supplementation to get those levels, at therapeutic doses.
Yeah.
So that is ho hum to Charlie now. He's seen it over and over and over and over that people turn around and miraculous transformations in mental health happen. It's ho hum for you. You take calls all day long, working with healthcare practitioners now, but also like working with people who take your product, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mostly talk with health professionals, but our science team trains staff we offer with our products extensive service. We found that our market needs it, in the severe mental health space. Support for them is really important, and that's clinicians, parents, siblings, family members, all of that. That's all important too, but understanding about our products and being encouraged to be consistent with the dosing. And we feel like to get the results out of our product for sometimes a few months of where they need more attention, and so we offer that service just built into the price of our products. And what it does though is it gives this real feedback to the company of what our customers are experiencing. That most supplement companies that are just sell you something and then they're done with you, sort of thing. Unless you want returns, they have a returns department and that's it. But there's not really coaching on how to use their products, and but we found that's necessary in the space that we're in for various reasons. So yeah, we have this feedback loop, and we see what our customers are going through, and it's given us a lot of insight. I don't know what you want me to talk about from it. There's lots of things that I could mention that we've learned from it.
Yes, I just want to reiterate how unique that is. Again, that you've got this product, and I would like you to hold. Do you have both bottles, like the DEN and the Vitamers?
I actually, I do on my desk. I moved to our conference room because it's a better background.
Okay,
I have a window in I should have brought them right here, but
that's okay. No worries.
Yeah, I might have mine.
Yeah.
I don't have the.
I'll just reiterate what you said. Will you take a moment to have a look? Great.
So I don't have the Vitamer version. You have, this is the original version of Daily Symptoms.
Yes.
So 2011 version, I guess, when Hardy Nutritionals, when my dad started Hardy Nutritionals. That's this formula, and we've tweaked it since with the Vitamer formula. So we have sort of two versions of this formula. I won't go into why we have the one and the other, but they're substantially similar, and they have similar effects. Just some people benefit more from one and then from others, and it has to do with different forms of the nutrients called vitamins. That might be a little too too deep for it. It might be a tangent to
Right.
what we're talking about now.
Right. And then just bringing it back to the big picture is the point is that when you buy the product, there's a 1-800 number. You can call and ask any questions. I'm having this effect, or it's not doing this, or it's doing that. Can you help me? Like, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And it's free as part of the product service. It's incredible. But you're right. What a window of insight into really getting a feel for the reaction that people are having to the product and the miraculous benefits.
I would, if you don't mind, I would like to comment on two main themes that we've observed over the years.
Yes.
One is nutrient drug interactions, definitely.
I was going to go there too. Yes.
We aren't the only ones to notice this, but most clinicians don't expect it because they've never used it, had a patient use a supplement along with their psychiatric medications that has such a capable and influential effect. And so they're not expecting how dramatic those interactions are. They've been characterized by other research than what we've done or what we've observed. And, but it's quite pronounced. And so, and it's a potentiative effect too. So it'll sort of, amplify the effects of the drugs, in a sort of displacement sort of way, you can imagine. So as the drug is treating some illness, you have a deficit in your function, the neurological function that the drug is sort of making up for. But as you correct the underlying problem and the neurological function is improved, the need for that drug goes down. The discrepancy between optimal function and where you are at that gap is slowly closing as the micronutrients upregulate your physiology. And so now you need less and less drug over time, basically, if you are a responder. And there are non-responders. This is not a panacea, but for many people, most, and definitely all those that stick with it, they are responders, and it's improving their physiology, and they end up needing to displace their medications, or else they start getting over medication effects. It's like the same dose they were on before of the drug, but since they don't need as much now, that they start feeling like they're over medicated, even though their dose hasn't changed. And that's because their physiology has changed, the responsiveness of their body to the drug has changed. And so that's one thing that we have to coach people through and help them understand it, and clinicians too. It's counterintuitive. Often, because they'll look at their regimen. Often they're on medication first, and then they find out about us and they want to try daily symptom nutrients. And so when they see this interaction emerging, they look back and say, "What's the last thing I changed? Well, I added this supplement. So the supplement must be the problem." But it's actually an interaction with the drugs. And we know that because in all the studies, and we have many blinded trials against placebo controlled trials now showing that, essentially no side effects from the daily essential nutrients other than getting better. It's a great side effect to have. But, and so we know it's from this interaction. And then another thing that's really a theme is we've learned about gut health, how important that is to getting the response to daily essential nutrients, because we see really consistently if people have poor digestive function, even just bowel disorders, or even just chronic constipation or diarrhea, they don't respond as well to daily essential nutrients. And if we can fix that, and it usually takes other products, not daily essential nutrients. So you fix the constipation or diarrhea, or you treat the bowel disorder better, and you improve the bowel function, then suddenly those nutrients start to, we think that it's probably multifaceted, that they get absorbed better, and also that the gut microbiome, because the micronutrients are not just feeding you, they're feeding your gut microbiome. So the microbiome is healthier, and whatever beneficial effects that has on your body is enhanced. And so those are two sort of themes that we have to troubleshoot with customers all the time. And there's other things too that come up that a lot of people aren't aware of, but we've seen just about everything, and we coach people through it.
Gosh, it's so incredible how much you guys know, window of insight into the role of micronutrients in all of this. So basically what you're saying is that there's lots of individuals that are on pharmaceuticals for mental health issues. And they might learn about this product, or they have a desire to taper down, or perhaps try and get off it. And they learn about your company and your product, and they start working with you. And over time, they don't feel good. All these wonderful benefits that we're talking about, they're like, I don't feel good. They don't know that they're over medicated. because the product, the micronutrients, the minerals and vitamins are healing the root cause. So the need for the medication goes down. But what happens is that there's a flare up of all of their symptoms. So all of the original reasons that they went on the pharmaceutical seem to be getting worse, right? So then they go to the doctor and the doctor says, maybe we should bump your dose, or maybe we should add a second drug. Isn't that what happens?
Yeah, you can get the snowballing effect. And especially if the clinician, this is why we, like in my job, my role, to talk to clinicians. We put clinicians through a micronutrient training course that we offer and train them on this phenomenon and help them understand it, because psychiatric, and it's not necessarily the original reason that they got on the drugs that flares up. Sometimes it is, but psychiatric drugs have psychiatric side effects, and if you don't need the medication, then like if I took not needing a psychiatric medication, I would get no benefit from it. I would just get negative side effects, and so those side effects can present much like a psychiatric illness. And so there's this snowball effect, and this happens even without daily symptoms. You get people who get on a medication and then get a second medication for the side effects of the first one. And so there's this snowballing effect happens with medication. But it's even more likely to happen if the clinician is not aware, and the patient, our customer, is not aware of this interaction effect, because if they don't need the medication, then they get heavier and heavier side effect burden from it. So what we teach people to do, we don't practice medicine. We don't tell them to reduce their medications or how to. We just educate them on what's going on. And there's this really useful process that we refer them to called I call it a side effect audit. All it is reading over the side effects of your drugs. Go to get a comprehensive list of them from some reputable source, and read through it. Most people have never done that. So they're feeling all these things in their body, and they just assume that it's problems with them, like it's inherent. The problems are inherent to them, but it can be really clarifying to people to read over the side effect list of their drugs regularly, because that allows them to sort of differentiate the illness from the treatment effects, right? And so often people will be able to start attributing some of the problems they've been experiencing to the treatment, or all the other side effects of the treatment. And it reduces the perception of what's actually wrong with them. They're like, maybe I'm not so broken after all. But at least part of me isn't. Now, it's important to note here that nobody should be going off of their medications without a capable, therapy to replace them, and without doing it under the guidance of a health professional, which is what we try and encourage at Hardy Nutritionals, and we try and get the health professional trained with us. And there are some psychiatrists and health professionals that are just not interested in learning, not open-minded, and that forces their patients to sort of do things on their own. But ideally, like Charlie, they'll be willing to see, and once they're willing to see the results and work with it, and hopefully they have a case that's not too complicated, so it doesn't confuse them as their first case, right? And then they can be okay with coaching their patients through this process, as we have observed to be the best practice they could do it.
Got it. So as life-changing and powerful as micronutrient supplementation in the formula that you've got, the research that you've got, with the two different products that are subtly different depending on different body types, as powerful as it is, don't just go off your pharmaceuticals. Work with professionals who know how to taper you down and taper you up, ramp up to heal the root cause of the potential psychiatric issue or the mental health issue. And then, as those rebuild your body and your brain, you can sort of potentially titrate down, but you need a professional to support you with that. And your team can be helpful, like to stay in touch with you, call you.
The educating coach, yeah. And it's important to know too that the reasons to, like, you don't want to stop your treatment preemptively and then start daily symptoms. You want the new treatment to replace it. You don't want to go to no treatment at all and then try and recover. And so, and the cool thing is about being able to measure worsening of side effects. If you do a side effect audit weekly, over time, as daily essential nutrients takes effect, if you can quantify it. You can count the number of side effects you're experiencing and rate the severity of them. And over time with daily essential nutrients, then if daily essential nutrients is working for you, then over week after week after week, you'll be able to notice the number of side effects that off that list we're reading on increases, and or the severity or frequency increases, and that becomes a signal, a clinical signal that you can follow, and that your doctor can follow rather. And so it's important to note that there's clinical reasons for doing this. You don't just adjust your treatment because you want to, right? And it can be measured and tracked, and that's the right way to go about it from my point of view.
Right. Absolutely. And just to sort of wrap up, I have about 10 more questions for you, but that's okay. They can go to your website, they can call you. Your product's incredible. It ties in with some of much of my demographic identifies with being food addicted. They'll have strong cravings for processed foods. So we know that over time, the more we eat of that, the more nutritionally deficient we're going to get. Unequivocally, the science is very, very clear on that. And one of the very first books that came out was by Dr. Nancy Appleton. She wrote a book called Suicide by Sugar. And her entire book was talking about how sugar disrupts the balance of minerals in the body. It actually depletes minerals in the body. And that's just one little lens in on, the ways that we can get nutritionally deficient that impacts our mental health. We know that there's a connection between mental health and addictions. We know that if one gets worse, the other gets worse. We know if one gets better, the other also gets better. So anything that supports our brain in being balanced and calm and clear and focused and happy and balanced is going to have a very positive impact on cravings and the need for stimulants and foods that jack up our brain chemistry to try and compensate for the fact that at the root cause, at the root level, we're deficient. Yeah. It's more than that. There's a body, mind, spirit component to it, but the body piece is very significant, and it's often, I think, neglected. They just hope that if they can get enough good food in them, that if they can get enough of it in, they can replenish this deficit. But this is a product that gets in there in a targeted way, in a very, very, very well researched way to do that efficiently. And
it's astute of you to bring up the crossover there. Obviously, it's your field, the addiction, but it's something the researchers noted on daily essential nutrients. There was the first double-blind randomized controlled trial using the daily essential nutrient formula for ADHD. It was adults with ADHD. Many of them were using substances. To be in the trial, they couldn't be taking medication for their ADHD. So no stimulants were being used, but street stimulants, were being used, and so that and the participants just voluntarily reported to the researchers that they noticed that they used their substances less smoking, especially. And so the researchers actually picked up on that and did a follow-up study. It was a double-blind trial, a blinded trial, to test this. And sure enough, it improved quit rates. This is just for nicotine cigarettes, and improved quit rates, and seemed to really help do that through the phase of addiction too. And it's consistent with what we've heard from our customers, because we have such contact with them. A lot of people will report reduced cravings, and there's obviously this other aspect too about self-medication, where if you are more resilient to stress because of the micronutrients, and you have that if you treat the disorder that you might be self-medicating, then you don't need to use the medication anymore, and it just falls away. It's almost like, that by that mechanism, if that's the mechanism by which you're primarily addicted, you almost don't even have to fight it because you've just placed it. And that, I'm sure there's multiple mechanisms involved, but it is a published, known effect with specifically the daily essential nutrient formula that benefit to addiction via the mood stability side.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I'm going to end with this one comment that I can think of no good reason why every human being on the planet, especially someone on a summit like this, where we know that you're struggling with processed foods and likely micronutrient deficiencies, and almost guaranteed to have mental health issues, there's absolutely no reason not to give this product a try. I will have a link to their product. They're sponsoring the Kick Sugar Summit this year. They're available to talk to. Their product is incredibly affordable, considering it actually comes with support on top of all the quality and the research that's backing it. So is there any final words you would like to say, Dallin?
Just that we would like to see at Hardy Nutritionals. You mentioned earlier, you didn't say the term empty calories, but you mentioned processed food, which is probably the better description for what's happening. And sometimes I've wondered if cravings for that type of food, when you start eating it, isn't your body sort of just like, there could be lots of other things going on, but your body's deficient in these minerals and vitamins that's not coming from that food, and so it needs to eat more and more and more, and still doesn't get them because it's not there in the food. It's what we've seen is just what I'm trying to say is, I would like to see when people have mental health issues, what we see in our business is they try conventional treatments for sometimes for many years, and then they find about us, come to us, and many of them are just really great responders, even if they haven't been to conventional treatments, and it dramatically changes their quality of life, improves it. And what we want to do at Hardy Nutritionals is invert that and have nutrition be the first line of defense. And if that doesn't work, go to the conventional treatment. And so you flip that around, and that would for many people that's where it would end. They would just fix the real problem. And I've had people ask me, do I have to take that for life? Because it's just kind of a concern with psychiatric medications too. It's kind of like a death sentence, right? You have to always be doing this. And I would say, well, you have to eat for life. These are all essential nutrients that are in food. Unfortunately, they're not in many types of food at a high enough level. And even in good types of food, like you said, due to agricultural practices, they're lower concentrations than they used to be. And so we're just boosting the essential nutrient content of essential nutrients that are already in your food, getting them back up to a level that can optimize health. And we have seen that, that over time, just like these problems probably come on gradually just by sinister sort of subacute insufficiency. It's not outright deficiency. Just over time, it causes these problems. The reverse sort of happens, and over time, you'll get the resilience where back to over many years, you'll be back at the point where normal people, if that's even a thing, can just, live their lives and not need it. But many people who have been severely mentally ill don't even want to go there. And my brother's one of them. You couldn't pay him $1 million to stop taking, just because, he's got a big family now, and he's providing for them, and it would throw a wrench into all of that. And for people that have had, really taxed or even ruined relationships and careers due to mental health issues, or even just the day-to-day grind of someone like who doesn't have a diagnosis, but they just are under functioning. There's that brain fog and cognitive impairment. It's just not worth it to them to go back. But that's what I want to say is let's make a root cause intervention the first line of instead of the last resort. Okay, and let's optimize our health, our mental health, and then maintain that. Whatever it takes to maintain that. Once you've seen the results, the question of do I need to always rely on this kind of becomes irrelevant because it's what you want.
Right, absolutely. And Dr. Bonnie Kaplan was very clear that, this isn't a license to be able to continue to binge eat the processed and ultra processed foods. We need whole foods, we need good nutrition, and we need micronutrient supplementations, and we need to get it from companies who've been researched and they know what they're doing with our bodies.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
or are we out
Yes.
of time?
Yes.
What we see is it's a kind of a gateway drug, so to speak, gateway supplement to better lifestyle eating, better diet as well. Because I mean, take for example, we've seen many of depressed individuals. Try and get them to get motivated to change their lifestyle, and it's just not going to happen. And so, but you can treat the depression with micronutrients, and that not only empowers them to have the motivation, the energy, and the mood to engage with life in a more active and proactive and happy way, but it also educates them that nutrition is that important. And so, I've had dietetics say, well, I don't like making people rely on supplements. I like to have them change their lifestyle first. And I'll say, well, just switch that around. It will happen. This is the gateway supplement to that because it shows the power of nutrition like other supplements don't. And so it's more likely than other supplements to actually motivate someone to make the broader, more pervasive one changes, the bigger picture changes that when you're in the illness you can't see or can't see.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. That totally makes sense to me. That's right. You need to have the motivation and the energy and the hope, right? To invest the time and energy into making those lifestyle changes. One last thing I'm going to say, I keep saying that, but this I forgot. I'm glad I remembered this. If you go to hardynutritionals.com and when you do go to the checkout, and if you type in Kick Sugar, you'll get a 50% discount. So be sure to use that. I hope you.
So 15, not a 50. Counted on this.
15%, totally. 15%. So when you go to the checkout, you'll see it. It's like a coupon code or something, right? Well, they ask, what does it ask for?
Yeah, I think it's called a referral code.
Referral code. Because I've done their training. I'm familiar with their products. I include it in all my coaching programs and recommend it all the time. And what a pleasure to have you here, Dallin, with an amazing story. And thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in this week. If you would like more interviews, more information, and more inspiration on how to break up with sugar, go to my YouTube channel, Kick Sugar Coach, or my website, kicksugarcoach.com. See you next week.